You're on.
Okay, so I was taking notes on the food security workshop that Kristen Sage and John Peck gave. See, I'm nervous being in front of the camera. Not really. John Peck and Kristen Sage gave, gave an overview of poverty rates in Wisconsin and how the food share program, formerly known as food stamps, it has grown over the last 5 years. It's gone from about 5% to about 15% on average in the state. That's a considerable number of increase in the use of it, and talked about that about the concept of food security that people are at risk for the kind of food needs that they have because of a lack of adequate food that's available. That people have to make financial decisions between the kinds of foods that they can eat and medication, for example. That the people that are most affected are obviously seniors, the working poor, single parents, and people on a fixed income. So then the discussion transitioned into ways that programs can address poverty and needs for food. One is that the government has been reducing stigma around food stamps by changing the name to food share and offering a food card rather than the food stamps, and so people are using what looks like a debit card, and they're trying to increase the number of people in the food share program because it's the way that the government addresses poverty, one of the ways that they address poverty. They're trying to increase that across the board with all the different affected groups. So there are many ways that people that need support. One of the things is that communities have I forget what they're called, food deserts that people have to travel a long ways to get to food sometimes. So if you live in an area that might share, John gave an example of Brooklyn that had one grocery store for an entire 5,000 people. 55,000 people, and so transportation becomes a big issue. And of course, if you're poor, it's a hard thing. Plus, who has the time to be traveling across the city to get their food? And we want to make it can be made more available locally so that people can get it easily. Food banks have a limited number of hours, a limited number of supplies, and a limited number of choices for people. And so we're talking about nutrition deficits also for people who have food security issues. So this is about pulling together different ways that a community can support people with their food needs. And this is John's part where he was talking about agriculture and how people pulling together can increase the ways that people have availability of food, such as that there's a lot of relationships that can be built up around increasing the kind of food that's available for people, such as people sharing food, like in faith communities. They can have potlucks and things like that so that people can share food. He went over some of the projects that are going on, such as a fair trade neighborhood project, which is reducing these food deserts, community dinners, that kind of thing I was just talking about. There's an Oneida project, I think also in other tribes that are having the same kind of projects, where they're trying to bring back traditional foods into the population so that they're, as part of building their culture, as well as growing plants that that for medicinal and herbal purposes, for health issues, and also increasing the kind of foods that are produced that are seen as prevention, food as medicine kind of things. And also, and then Kristen talked about the Dane County Time Bank's gardening project, which engages people in the time bank to go to people's gardens, get their gardens started, help them with advice on how to build a garden up if it's new to them. And then just today, actually, we've had a lot of mulch being delivered around the town. So I can't wait to get back and start mulching my garden, because I got a truckload today that I'm going to share with neighbors, because we share a whole line of gardens. So.
Isn't it compost you're getting?
Compost. What did I say?
Mulch.
Compost. Yeah, compost.
Really. I just want you to be disappointed when you go.
No, real compost. No, it's much better than mulch. Sorry. Anyway, and we talked a lot about. I like the statement that you made. Said the community the community we form around food. So rather than food being part of the community, it's really how the community comes together to create a culture around good nutrition and supporting each other so that everybody has enough to eat, bringing in food from local farms, that kind of thing. So then we went in talking about. We had a discussion about ways that there are gaps in the food system and ways that we can increase that. I brought up that the Madison School District, parents have been trying to get the Madison School District to have fresh foods, and it was a huge organizational change, not necessarily resistance, but it was a lot of challenge around money and changing the operations, and I think that was that might be a good example of how we were actually talking about nursing homes and how a nursing home could have more fresh and better food for people, but it's sort of an institutional change where they're used to opening up cans and frozen things and shifting it over into more frozen food, fresh food that involves a lot more preparation, that kind of thing. Having swap meets to exchange unused food, work experience around food so that people get education on how to prepare foods and how to grow it themselves. Engaging people to support farmers, to help with the end of the season needs, harvesting produce and preparing the land for the winter and the next growing season, and a project that's going on in Appleton about using a former golf course that was purchased by nonprofits to develop all sorts of programming around community engagement around food and growing. Anyway, so I think that's basically it, but we did finish with a really good example. The Stone Soup story was a great example of how people really come together to create, abundance, which is that a lot of people have pieces of the puzzle, and when people get together, we complete that puzzle together and make something really worthwhile for everyone. All right.